The international tourism industry took a massive hit during the COVID-19 pandemic, and many tourism businesses, from tour drivers to accommodation providers in the Falklands, suffered as a result of this. While schemes such as TRIP and TRIP2 have supported companies throughout, FIG have had plans in place for a couple of years to help support the return of an international tourism season.
So many businesses benefited from the TRIP scheme. So you had a lot of local tourism, and so kind of the restaurants, accommodation providers had access to funds that maybe they wouldn't have in the absence of that scheme. But some of the more, particularly the more casual drivers and tour guides and kind of some of the smaller businesses didn't necessarily benefit as much from that. And so the idea was that they may have some expenses that they require assistance getting started again. So particularly for the drivers, kind of things like insuring their vehicles, making sure they're up to scratch. So to give them kind of a head start into the coming season so they're prepared and able to do business again. And what we expect is going to be hopefully a more normal tourism season in the coming year.
The Chamber of Commerce, representing business interests in the Falkland Islands, wrote to FIG to express concerns ahead of the paper being considered.
So essentially in writing this letter, we just wanted to make sure that, number one, we were asking the government to make sure it fulfills its obligation that it said it would set out to do by introducing the scheme. We also wanted to make sure the government was fully aware of what issues the tourist sector was currently facing after 2.5 years of minimal activity.
I think it was really helpful to hear kind of from the community, because there had been sort of mixed views because of the success of TRIP about whether or not these grants were still necessary. And so it was helpful to hear from people about that they were still needed and how they might use them, and also kind of give us some feedback on the administration. So rather than being administered by FIG, they actually will be administered through the tourist board. And so kind of a closer to industry than kind of folks sitting in government.
The grant scheme, as approved by Executive Council this week, will see eligible businesses able to apply for grants of up to £3,000.
So it seems to tick the boxes and meet the requirements based on the feedback we got from our membership and submitted in writing to the government. I think we're probably all aware that over the last few months there have been significant price increases in fuel, electricity. So whether that £3,000 that was agreed some time ago is going to bring the same benefits as it would have had it been introduced in the original time period that it was intended to. I'd say there's still probably questions over the amount.
So the decision was taken to go forward with the original £3,000, and I think the idea behind that is that it wasn't defined originally kind of as paying for any sort of set of expenses. It's meant to really be a contribution towards those expenses, and so I think MLAs felt that it was still an appropriate figure.
With a maximum estimated budget spend of around £300,000, it seems as though this scheme will go some way to helping tourism businesses as visitors start to return to the islands.
It's really great to see this support scheme coming into place in time, hopefully, for businesses to be able to make use of it before we get into the depths of the first tourist season for 2.5 years. Really exciting to see that the government's followed through with the promise of supporting our businesses and investing back into our local economy.